The clinic room was cold, not just from the overworked AC vent humming above, but from something else. Something unsaid. Dr. Aisha Patel narrowed her eyes, scanning the black and white fuzz of the ultrasound monitor. Her hand, usually steady after 17 years of pediatric practice, trembled slightly on the probe resting against the girl's stomach. Across from her, 9-year-old Naomi lay silent, completely silent. Not just today, not just this morning. 6 weeks. Not one word. Her mother, Linda, sat in the corner chair, wringing her fingers until her knuckles turned white. Naomi blinked slowly. Her tiny frame was still, save for the soft twitch of her thumb, rubbing a spot on the hem of her hoodie, a faded pink garment that looked 2 sizes too big. Probably her sister's. Or maybe... No, she didn't have a sister. At least not anymore. Dr. Patel's eyes shot to the screen again. Something was off. Not medically, but emotionally. There was something in the scan that didn't make sense. "Linda," she said, voice low, "what exactly prompted you to schedule this ultrasound?" Linda looked up, but Naomi answered first, with a sketchbook. She pulled it from under the exam bed and silently opened to a page, then handed it to Dr. Patel. It was a pencil drawing. Childlike, yes, but disturbingly precise. In the middle, a small baby curled in a womb. Floating next to it, another baby, translucent, almost ghost-like. Holding the first one's hand, Naomi had drawn them connected. Dr. Patel froze. Her gaze jumped from the sketch to the screen. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She didn't just freeze physically, her mind short-circuited. "Is this recent?" she asked finally, voice hoarse. Naomi didn't nod. She didn't flinch. She just pointed to the second figure in the drawing and whispered her first words in weeks. "She's still here." Before continue this story, let us know, where are you watching from? Let's begin the story 12 hours earlier. The early morning sun painted soft gold streaks across the modest kitchen. Naomi sat on the floor, feeding milk to a stray kitten she had rescued 3 days ago. She hadn't spoken to anyone since the day they moved to town. Not to her teachers, not to the neighbors' kids, not even to Linda, who hovered awkwardly by the doorway, trying to ask if she wanted toast. Silence. Always silence. Linda's patience was wearing thin, but her guilt was greater. She didn't press. Instead, she watched her daughter hum a tune, barely audible, the same melody over and over. "The cradle will fall." That lullaby again. The one she had sung. Not to Naomi, but to Mia. Linda shook her head and turned away. She couldn't afford to break down. Not now. 3 weeks earlier, school incident. Naomi had been found in the library, sitting under a desk, her hand clutched over her belly, crying. But not loud tears. Just that kind of soundless sobbing that seemed to come from a place so deep, no air reached it. When the school counselor tried to approach her, Naomi only pointed to a sketch in her notebook. A picture of 2 girls, holding hands. One had no face. Back to present, clinic room. Dr. Patel took a deep breath. She gently placed the sketch down and moved the probe slightly. The monitor flickered. The image of Naomi's womb came back into focus. Empty, of course. She wasn't pregnant. But there was a subtle darkened shadow. An artifact, perhaps, where the amniotic cavity would form. It wasn't biologically possible. She knew that. But this wasn't about biology anymore. "Naomi," she said, almost whispering, "why did you want me to see this?" Naomi opened the next page of her sketchbook. This time, it wasn't a baby. It was a hospital room, a tiny bed, a red X across it, and a woman's face crying in the corner. Linda gasped when she saw it. Dr. Patel didn't need to ask. "That's you," she said, looking at the mother. Linda's face went pale. The color drained so fast, it was like watching blood leave a body. "I never told her," she said, voice cracking. "Never. She was just a baby. How could she know?" Naomi finally spoke again, still quiet but with certainty. "She told me in the dreams." The beeping of the monitor echoed in the still room. Dr. Patel sat frozen, staring at the ultrasound, her hand now off the machine. Linda had risen to her feet, her breathing rapid, lips trembling. Naomi turned her head and looked directly at her mother. Her next words came with no tears, just truth. "You said I was your only baby." She paused. "Then why do I miss someone I never met?" "You said I was your only baby. Then why do I miss someone I never met?" Those words still hung in the air like smoke, suffocating, inescapable. Linda could hardly breathe. Dr. Patel leaned back from the ultrasound monitor slowly, as if pulling herself away from something far darker than a screen. She met Linda's eyes, but found no answers there, only panic and shame. "Naomi," she asked gently, "can you tell me what you meant?" Naomi didn't speak. She didn't need to. She flipped to the next drawing in her sketchbook. This one was different, a crib, split in two. One half was drawn with colorful toys, sunshine, and soft pillows. The other was empty, just shadows. But the strange part? A mirror on the wall between them, reflecting both sides. "She used to sleep next to me," Naomi whispered. 5 years ago. Linda had lived in a different house then, bigger, brighter. She'd been happy, pregnant with twins, until the complications came. Until Mia, the second baby, arrived early. Too early. One lived, one didn't. Or so she thought. There had been a moment Linda remembered when the nurse held both babies, one quiet, one screaming. A swirl of voices, machines, alarms. A doctor's voice, "Only one viable." And then silence. Linda had screamed, cried, shattered. But over time, she had told herself, it's better Naomi never knew. No need to give her a ghost to carry. She never even showed her a photo. And yet, here Naomi sat, drawing sketches that matched the layout of that old nursery, right down to the mirror. "I packed everything away before she could walk," Linda whispered to herself. There's no way she remembers. But back in the present, Dr. Patel's office. Dr. Patel stood up, arms crossed tightly over her chest. "Linda, this isn't just about trauma anymore. Your daughter is communicating through symbols and stories she shouldn't know. Children don't just imagine the kind of precision I'm seeing in these drawings." She paused. "Has she been having night terrors, sleepwalking, anything else?" Linda hesitated, then nodded. 2 weeks ago, I found her outside, barefoot, middle of the night, just standing in the backyard. And she said, her voice cracked. She said she was trying to open the other crib. Meanwhile, Naomi sat on the clinic bed, sketchbook now resting in her lap. She wasn't listening to the adults anymore. She was hearing something else. A lullaby, distant but familiar. And down will come baby, cradle and all. The same one that hummed through her dreams. Naomi closed her eyes. She saw the crib again, but this time, the other side wasn't empty. There was a hand reaching through the mirror. Linda kept it buried deep in her drawer, beneath expired documents and old tax papers. A photo from the day Naomi came home from the NICU. She had never shown it to anyone, not even Naomi, because behind Linda's exhausted smile was a second incubator, blurred, out of focus. But it was there. She had cropped it out before framing the print for the living room. She thought she had buried that part of the past. But children see what adults try to forget. Dr. Patel turned back to Naomi. Naomi, when you say she's still here, do you mean you can see her? Naomi looked up. No fear, no hesitation. Only at night, but sometimes. I hear her in the day, too. She pulled out one more drawing. This one chilled Dr. Patel to her core. It was the clinic room, today's exact room, the monitor, her white coat. The drawing had been made before they even arrived. She told me you'd help, Naomi said softly. Linda sat in the hospital bathroom 5 years ago, blood on her gown, grief in her chest, and her arms empty. A nurse came in quietly. Do you want a photo with both girls? It helps later, sometimes. Linda had shaken her head violently. No, I want to forget. I can't. I can't hold them both if I can't keep them both. The nurse left, and Linda buried everything. The blanket, the bracelet, the name. She never said Mia again. As Dr. Patel stood frozen, Naomi took her hand. I don't want her to go back to sleep. Dr. Patel blinked. What do you mean? Naomi's voice dropped to a whisper. Because when she sleeps, the crying starts again. And it's not hers. Mommy, who's Mia? The room fell silent. Linda stopped breathing. Dr. Patel dropped the pen in her hand. It clattered against the cold tile like a warning bell. Naomi just blinked, her voice small, curious, like she'd simply asked for a snack. But Linda's face turned white. Naomi, she whispered. Where did you hear that name? The little girl tilted her head. She told me. The moment Naomi was born, Linda made a choice. Erase Mia from existence. Not out of cruelty, but survival. She never spoke her name again, never wrote it, never kept a photo. Even the grave was unmarked, just a tiny windswept corner of St. Agnes Cemetery, where Linda left a single stuffed elephant and walked away forever. There was no way Naomi could know her name. No one ever said it in front of her. Not once. So how? Naomi hugged her sketchbook to her chest. She said her name is Mia. She says it when I'm sleeping. She sings to me. Dr. Patel stepped forward slowly. What does she sing, Naomi? Naomi didn't answer. She hummed, softly, eerily. It was Rockabye Baby, off-key, dragging. And halfway through, her voice dropped in pitch. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall, and down will come baby. She stopped. That's when she cries the most. Later that night, Dr. Patel sat alone in her office, the blinds pulled tight. She clicked through scans of Naomi's brain. Nothing abnormal. No lesions, no trauma. And yet, something was wrong. She opened a psychology reference file, flipping to a section on shared twin memory. A rare, controversial theory suggesting surviving twins may retain subconscious memories from their womb partner. Most scientists dismissed it. But Naomi's drawings, her behavior, the name. Could it be survivor's guilt? She whispered. From someone who doesn't even know she survived? But even that didn't explain the accuracy of the nursery sketches or the whispering lullabies. 5 years ago. Rain, cold wind, a single white flower. Linda had stood alone, arms folded tightly across her chest, watching as the small wooden box was lowered into the ground. I'll be a good mom to the one I still have, she said through tears. I'll give her a fresh start. I'll never let her carry this. The priest asked her one last time. Do you want her name engraved? Linda shook her head. No one needs to know. That night, Naomi tossed and turned in bed. Her covers kicked off. A breeze tickled the curtains, though no windows were open. She mumbled in her sleep. No, don't go. Don't go under the water. She gasped awake, heart racing. Standing at the foot of her bed was a girl. Same age, same hair, same eyes. But the girl's dress was wet, soaking wet. I don't want to be alone anymore, the girl whispered, then vanished. The next morning, Linda drove through the cemetery gates. She hadn't been back since the burial. Each step felt like dragging iron behind her. And then, she froze. There were fresh flowers on Mia's grave, but not from her. A crayon drawing lay beneath the bouquet, a child's handwriting. I missed you last night. I'll come back soon. N. Linda's hands trembled. She turned the drawing over. On the back was a sketch of two girls, one smiling, one with eyes hollowed out. That evening, Linda sat beside Naomi on the bed. Sweetheart, who is Mia to you? Naomi hesitated, then whispered. She says she's the other me. What does that mean? Naomi pointed to her chest. She lives here, but sometimes she gets sad when I forget her. Forget her? How? Naomi's eyes filled with tears. You told me I was alone. She looked at Linda with a heartbreaking softness. But I'm not, Mommy. I remember the warm part, from before the lights. Linda felt the air leave her lungs. Before the lights, she remembered the operating room, the cold, the flickering fluorescent bulbs overhead. You remember the delivery room? She asked, stunned. Naomi shook her head. No, before that. When we were still floating, me and Mia. Sometimes, Mia plays with the lights, Naomi said it casually, over a bowl of cereal. But Linda nearly dropped her mug. What lights? The ones that flicker when she's sad. That same afternoon, Dr. Patel reviewed Naomi's recent test results in her office. The moment she reached the ultrasound file from Naomi's second scan, the lights in the clinic flickered. Then, out. Power gone. The hum of the computers, the monitor, even the refrigerator, all silent. The backup generator kicked in 20 seconds later, but it was enough, because during those 20 seconds, on the black monitor screen, something appeared. A faint image. Two shapes in the womb, one moving, one still. Dr. Patel's hand shook as she replayed the footage, but this time, there was only one. Dr. Patel's assistant had accidentally loaded an old file during the initial visit, Naomi's prenatal ultrasound. It wasn't supposed to be in the system. Linda had requested everything purged. Even the hospital confirmed deletion. So where did this copy come from? And why now? That evening, Naomi stood in the hallway facing the wall. Not moving, not blinking. Linda called her name once, twice. Nothing. She stepped forward, placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder. Naomi whispered, "She wants to come out now." Who? Mia. She says, "You're ready." The next morning, Linda didn't take Naomi to the clinic. Instead, she begged Dr. Patel to come to the house. When she arrived, she found the windows dark, curtains pulled, and Naomi sitting in the middle of the living room, completely silent, her eyes fixated on the ceiling. Linda was pacing. Mobile seat. She won't speak. She hasn't blinked in 15 minutes. Dr. Patel knelt in front of the girl. Naomi, can you hear me? No reply. She checked her vitals. Normal. But when she lifted the girl's hand to examine her response, Naomi's other hand began to twitch, repeating a rhythmic tapping. Dr. Patel froze. "That's Morse code," she whispered. They transcribed it slowly. "She is not gone. She remembers. She hurts." Linda gasped. "No. This has to be some kind of..." But before she could finish, Naomi blinked and whispered, "She says you left her in the cold. She says the ground is too quiet." Dr. Patel sat back. This was no longer psychology. At the hospital 5 years ago, the doctors had warned her, "There's only one heartbeat now." Linda, already post-surgery, couldn't process it. When they handed her Naomi, she refused to look at the second crib. She signed the documents, donated the remaining fetal tissue to science. Told them, "Erase all the files. I don't want her sister to carry this." And for years, it worked. Naomi grew up smiling. Until one morning, she simply stopped talking. That night, Naomi picked up her paint set and began brushing the hallway wall. Not randomly, deliberately. A rectangle, a doorknob, hinges, a door. Linda tried to stop her. "She's... Sweetheart, that's not..." Naomi turned. "She wants me to open it. It's just paint. There's nothing behind it." Naomi shook her head. "Not for you." And then, she pressed her hand against the wall and smiled. She's close now. Just before midnight, Linda's phone rang. It was the old nurse from Naomi's birth. Retired years ago. Her voice trembled. "Linda, I've carried this for too long. I think you should know." "What?" "They told you only one survived. But that's not exactly true." Linda's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "The other one. She lived. For 12 minutes. Alone." She cried. She held on to Naomi's hand, and then let go. The line went dead. Linda dropped the phone. Naomi appeared behind her. "She doesn't want to be forgotten anymore. She knows what you did. She knows where it happened." Naomi, in a voice that didn't sound like hers. Linda stood frozen in the hallway, watching Naomi trace her fingers along the wall. Not just any wall. The guest room. A room Naomi had never been in. It had been locked since they moved in. Linda never furnished it, never explained it. Yet now Naomi stood there, eyes closed, whispering, "Sham, she wants her blanket. It's still in here." Linda stepped forward slowly. "How do you know that, Naomi?" The girl didn't answer. She simply turned the knob. The door opened. And Naomi walked straight to the far left corner, reached under a floorboard and pulled out a tiny pink baby blanket. Linda gasped. She remembered hiding it there 5 years ago. Linda had been devastated. The nurse handed her 2 blankets, one warm, one unused. She couldn't bear to throw it away, so she wrapped it tightly, kissed it once, and hid it, a symbolic goodbye. "I'll come back for you someday." She never did, until now. Over breakfast the next morning, Naomi began humming. It was a lullaby, the exact one Linda had sung in the hospital. A lullaby she had never sung again. Then Naomi looked up and said, "Mia wants her elephant, the one with the torn ear." Linda dropped her fork. No one knew about that toy, not even her closest friends. She had buried it with the donation bag at the hospital. "How do you know this?" Naomi tilted her head. "Mia knows. I see what she sees. I feel what she feels." "That's not possible." Naomi's voice lowered. "But it's happening." Dr. Patel couldn't sleep. Something about Naomi's scans wouldn't leave her alone. She printed side-by-side images from Naomi's prenatal scans and her recent ones. That's when she saw it. A mirrored anomaly. A faint, dual-patterned imprint within the womb tissue. Like two cords that had once twisted together, then split. She pulled Naomi's blood work, then compared it to archived hospital data. 2 fetal DNA prints. 1 slightly altered, still present. Dr. Patel researched. Microchimerism, a condition where cells from a lost twin survive in the body of the surviving sibling. It was rare, but sometimes it caused memory imprints, sometimes more. Could Naomi be channeling her twin's experiences, or worse? Could Mia be using Naomi to speak for herself? Dr. Patel returned to Linda's home with a small voice recorder. She asked Naomi to talk freely. What came out? It's dark, so cold. I called Mama, but she didn't come. I held Naomi's hand. But then I was floating. I saw the bright lights. I heard beeping. I tried to cry. The pitch dropped. The tone changed. They thought I was gone, but I stayed. I waited. Dr. Patel nearly dropped the recorder. This wasn't storytelling. This was a medical description of a NICU unit. No child Naomi's age could possibly know these terms. Linda breaks down. That night, Linda finally cracked. She held Naomi tightly and sobbed. I didn't know. I thought it would be kinder to let her go. I didn't know she'd remember. Naomi didn't flinch. She just whispered she forgives you. What? She said it wasn't your fault. The machines lied. She was alive, just not strong enough. Linda crumpled. Yes, then why now? Why is she doing this now? Naomi answered with haunting calm. Because I'm strong enough now to bring her back. Naomi returned to her sketchpad. She began to draw, but this time, it wasn't just shapes. It was a hospital room, blue walls, a tiny crib, a machine with red and green lights. In the crib, 2 babies, one crying, one still. Then, Naomi drew a shadow, hovering above them, watching, waiting. Mommy, Mia says don't go to work today. Naomi whispered this with wide, unblinking eyes. It was 6:14 a.m. Monday, the day Linda's car brakes failed. Naomi's sketchpad was open on the kitchen table. The picture showed a red car swerving, a woman inside, a pole, a crash. The terrifying part? It was Linda's car, her license plate, her work route, drawn the night before the accident. Linda blinked sleep from her eyes as she poured cereal. Naomi sat calmly, staring at her juice. Sir, what's wrong, honey? Naomi looked up. Mia says you'll get hurt today. Stay home, Mommy. Linda chuckled nervously. Sweetheart, I have meetings. It's just a normal day. Naomi pushed the drawing forward. Then why did I draw this yesterday? Linda paused. Her hand tightened on the spoon. The detail was impossible. Even the crack in her left headlight was there. You've never even looked closely at my car. Naomi said nothing. 9:17 a.m. Linda's phone rang. It was Officer Benson. Ms. Keene, we found your vehicle. Someone tampered with the brake line. If you'd driven it, you wouldn't have made it to work alive. Linda dropped the phone. Naomi's drawing sat by her elbow, just as it was, just as it happened. 3 days ago, Linda had gone out to grab a charger from her car. She heard a noise, just a bump. When she peeked, no one was there, but her toolbox had been moved. She thought nothing of it. Now it made sense. Someone had planned this. But how did Naomi know? Dr. Patel reviewed Naomi's newest drawings. Each one had detail. A street sign from downtown. A man's jacket. The inside of a courtroom. Rows of people. A judge's gavel. She's not predicting. She's remembering. But from somewhere else. Linda squinted. What do you mean? Naomi isn't making this up. These are Mia's memories. And now, somehow, Mia is leading Naomi to people who hurt her. That night, it rained hard. Linda stood in the hallway, staring at the old guest room door again. She opened it. The blanket was still there. So was something else. A cardboard box she'd forgotten she'd hidden. Inside, hospital forms, a discharge slip, a letter. Do not resuscitate. It had her signature on it. She collapsed. I'm sorry. I thought it was the right thing. I thought you were gone. From the hallway, Naomi's voice came soft and clear. I wasn't gone. I was quiet. At breakfast the next morning, Naomi asked a question. What does October 12, 2020 mean? Linda's spoon froze midair. That was the day the hospital told her both twins wouldn't make it. That was also the day she signed the DNR. Where did you hear that date? Naomi shrugged. Mia said to tell you. She says you forgot. Linda's hands shook. Forgot what? That someone else was in the room that day. Naomi's next drawing was different. It showed the hospital NICU, 2 cribs, 2 babies, and in the background, a man in a white coat. But his eyes were shaded, and on his sleeve, the same logo from Dr. Sorens's clinic, the private hospital Linda had transferred to, the one that gave her the early prognosis that one child had no chance. Linda hadn't told Naomi the name of that hospital, not even once. Linda drove to Soren's clinic that night. She walked straight into the archives room and demanded to see her daughter's old file. At first, they resisted. Then she said, "The man who told me to sign the DNR, he's in my daughter's drawings." The nurse paled. There was an incident. A staff member was quietly let go that same week. She handed over a grainy ID badge photo. Linda stared at it. The same face from Naomi's sketch. Naomi now drew faster, harder. She wasn't herself anymore. She was cold, robotic, focused. The final drawing, a courtroom. Linda on the stand, the man in handcuffs, and in the very last corner, a tiny figure, Mia, watching from the back row. She used to sing to us, Naomi said softly, tracing her finger along a napkin. When the lights went out, she was scared too. Linda paused. Who was scared, baby? Naomi looked up. The nurse, the one with the lavender scarf. Mia said she cried the night everything changed. Linda woke up to the smell of acrylic paint. Naomi was sitting on the floor in the living room, surrounded by newspaper. She'd painted something new, not with crayons this time, with trembling, careful brushstrokes. It was a hospital hallway, dimly lit. At the far end, a door. Inside, a crib. And standing near it, a nurse wearing a lavender scarf. There was something unsettling about the scene. Naomi wasn't painting like a child anymore. She was remembering. Like someone who had been there. The next morning, Linda took the painting and drove to the old NICU facility. She sat down with an administrator, a woman named Marjorie, now retired, but still helping with record audits. When Linda laid the painting in front of her, Marjorie's hands went still. That's Nora. You recognize her? She was a float nurse, quiet, gentle, never spoke much. She wore a lavender scarf every shift, said it was her lucky color. Is she still around? She left the hospital the same week your daughter died. Marjorie agreed to help Linda dig deeper. Together, they pulled archived surveillance footage from October 12, 2020. the day Linda had signed the DNR. The grainy clips flickered on the screen. Crib A, Crib B, baby monitors beeping. 8:47 a.m., Nurse Nora walks in, wheels a cart toward Crib B, Mia's crib. 8:49 a.m. A man in a doctor's coat enters. Not her attending physician. Someone else. The footage has no sound. But what they saw next made Linda's stomach flip. Nora steps between the crib and the man. She's shaking her head. She's pleading. The man grabs her by the arm. She yanks away. He storms out. At 9:05 a.m., Nora is seen placing something in Mia's crib. A small object. Possibly a cloth doll. Then the footage cuts out. That night, Naomi refused to eat. She kept sniffing her hands. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Naomi looked dazed. It smelled like lavender and fear. Linda froze. The same scent Nora wore. And the word Naomi used, fear, wasn't like her usual vocabulary. It was like someone else had said it first. It took 3 days, dozens of calls, and an online parenting forum. But eventually, she found her. Nora Avani, now working at a small community clinic 2 towns over. When Linda walked into the modest building, she didn't speak right away. She just placed the painting on the counter. Nora looked up and covered her mouth. That room, that moment, I never told a soul. Tears welled in her eyes. I tried to stop him. Nora led Linda to the back room. From a folder, she pulled out a copy of an internal complaint she had filed that week before she abruptly resigned. They said Mia wouldn't survive, but she was improving. That man, Dr. Halvers, he insisted we remove oxygen support. He said it was protocol. But it wasn't? No, it wasn't. I checked. I refused. I told him to wait for the mother. Hours later, he overrode my chart. I was told to back off or I'd lose my license. Why didn't you say anything? Because I didn't think anyone would believe me. Naomi wouldn't sleep that night. She curled up at the end of Linda's bed, whispering to herself. Linda leaned in. Naomi was mumbling a name, over and over. Dr. Halvers. Dr. Halvers. Dr. Halvers, Linda whispered back. Do you remember him? Naomi didn't blink. Mia does. Linda called Dr. Patel the next morning. If Mia's soul is still connected, is she trapped? I don't think she's trapped, he said quietly. But I do think she has something to say. Something she never got to tell you. Like what? Maybe. How she died wasn't your fault. Naomi came into the kitchen around 10 p.m. She was calm, more calm than usual. She sat at the table and quietly drew one last picture. This one showed Linda, standing in court, pointing at a man in a doctor's coat. Below it, Naomi had written, for the first time ever in her own handwriting, he made you choose. Mia forgives you. Linda dropped to her knees and sobbed. The guilt she had carried for 4 years finally cracked. It wasn't her fault. Someone else had chosen. And now, she would make it right. She's trying to protect you, Naomi whispered, clutching the tiny cloth doll tighter than ever. But he knows now. He's angry. A knock came at the door just past midnight. Linda sat up, heart hammering. Naomi was already awake, sitting cross-legged on the couch, hugging her knees, whispering to the doll. Linda opened the front door slowly, no one there. Just the faint scent of antiseptic and a manila envelope lying on the welcome mat. Inside, a single photograph. A grainy hospital hallway. Timestamp, October 12, 2020, 9:07 a.m. A blurred figure in a white coat walking away from Crib B. The back of his badge was visible. Dr. Halvers. No note, no signature, just the image and the implied threat. I know what you're doing. The next morning, Linda walked into the legal aid office downtown. Her hands trembled as she set down the folder she'd compiled. Nora's incident report. The surveillance printout, Naomi's drawings. The photo from last night, the intake lawyer, Tom Carter. Flipped through the pages slowly. Then he looked up at Linda. This might actually be enough. Enough to press charges. Enough to start something. But it won't be easy. You're going up against a powerful hospital system. They'll do everything to bury this. Linda didn't blink. Then I'll dig louder. That evening, Naomi stopped drawing, stopped painting. She sat completely still in her room, whispering to the doll, over and over. Don't go there, Mama. The man in white is watching. What man, Naomi? He doesn't have a face when I dream. But I hear his shoes. They squeak. And he smells like burned wires. Linda froze. That exact description had been given by a nurse back in 2020 when she filed a complaint about Halvers's unorthodox late-night visits to the NICU. No one had told Naomi that. 2 days later, Linda saw him, Dr. Halvers, in the frozen food aisle of a local store. He was older, grayer, but the same arrogant gait. She turned to go, but he spotted her. Linda Carr, isn't it? He said, voice syrupy. Don't pretend you forgot. Well, I'm sorry for your loss, but digging up the past won't bring her back. Maybe not, she replied, but it might stop you from hurting someone else's baby. He leaned in, lowering his voice. You have no idea what forces you're stirring. His eyes flicked toward the lavender doll, poking out of Linda's handbag. He grinned. Tell the ghost I said hi. That night, Linda found Naomi staring at the doll again. She wasn't whispering, she was listening, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. She says he's scared now, Naomi said calmly. Bo? Who? The man in the white coat. Why? Naomi looked at her mother with eerie clarity. Because she's not done telling the truth. Then Naomi pressed the doll to her ear and smiled. Tom Carter, the lawyer, called Linda the next day. You're not going to believe this. He'd received an anonymous tip, an encrypted drive. It contained a single audio file, a voice memo dated October 11, 2020. Nurse Nora's voice. She was nervous, whispering into her phone. Patient B, Mia Carr, is improving beyond prognosis. I believe Dr. Halvers intends to override the DNR without parental consultation. This is against protocol. I'm scared. If anything happens, I tried to stop it. Tom looked at Linda. This is your smoking gun. Linda swallowed hard. Then we fire it. That night, Naomi stood in the hallway. She wasn't crying, she wasn't whispering. She spoke, fully and clearly, for the first time in weeks. Mama, she wants me to be brave now, like she was. Who, sweetheart? Mia. What does she want? Naomi turned and walked toward the living room, picking up the doll. Then she looked at her mom. To show them where she went and what he did. Linda's chest tightened. Naomi, this little girl, was ready to testify. But how? The next morning, Tom called again. Linda, you need to be careful. Why? The envelope from the other night? We traced it. And? It came from inside the hospital mailroom. Someone is leaking info, but someone else is watching too. Are we in danger? I don't know, but Halvers is rattled. That means he's unpredictable. Linda hung up and turned to Naomi. The doll was sitting upright now, propped against the window, watching the street, waiting. Tell me how a 6-year-old knows medical terms no one taught her. The defense attorney's voice echoed through the courtroom. Naomi didn't flinch. She just pointed at the doll in her lap. Because she remembered everything. 2 weeks after the anonymous voice file was delivered, Linda sat across from attorney Tom Carter in the prep room of the courthouse. They tried to get the case thrown out, he said, claimed the recording was fabricated. But the judge admitted it. So we're going to trial. Well, we are. But Linda, we need a witness. Linda hesitated, then looked over at Naomi, sitting quietly in the corner, coloring, in her usual purple crayon. That night, Linda sat with Naomi on the couch. Sweetheart, there are going to be people who ask about what you saw when you were little. Do you think you can talk about it? Naomi didn't respond at first. Then she reached down into her backpack and pulled out another drawing. One Linda had never seen. It showed a baby in a hospital bed, wires, machines, and next to the crib, a man. But his face was missing, replaced with a giant red question mark. At the bottom, Naomi had written, "He didn't want me to see, but I did." The hospital had hired a top-dollar attorney, Mr. Clayton Drake, slick, charismatic, cold eyes. He stood in front of the press the morning of the trial and said, "These are baseless allegations founded on grief and fantasy. There is no evidence of wrongdoing, and certainly not from Dr. Halvers, a decorated neonatologist with 22 years of service." Linda stood beside Tom Carter. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Naomi clutched the doll tighter. The judge was stern, no nonsense. Opening statements were made. Tom Carter told the story. An infant marked for death, a grieving mother gaslit, and a 6-year-old child who remembers what no one else should. He played the audio file for the court. Nurse Nora's whisper filled the room. "I'm scared. He's not following protocol. He changed her chart." Gasps rippled across the gallery. Halvers didn't blink. On day 2, Nurse Nora herself appeared. She looked older, nervous. But she took the stand and told everything. He came in late, after hours, said he was authorized. I didn't question it until I saw the code written over Mia's DNR. What was the code? RxCOMP. Tom turned to the jury. That's a pharmaceutical directive. It means a child is to be put on an experimental compound, usually when terminal. But Mia wasn't terminal. And did you file a complaint? Yes, a week before she died. It was buried. A hush fell over the courtroom. It was unexpected, but the judge allowed it. Linda's heart pounded as Naomi took the witness chair. She looked very small, but also very steady. Tom knelt beside her. "Naomi, do you remember your sister?" She nodded. "She came to me after she left. How?" Naomi glanced at the doll. She whispered while I slept. Then, in the mornings, I saw her in the mirror. Sometimes just her eyes. The jury stirred. "And what did she show you?" Naomi reached into her lap. She held up the final drawing. It showed a baby in a crib. And next to it, a hand reaching toward a machine, wires being pulled. In the background, a shadow with a badge. The defense objected, but the judge allowed the drawing, and even the doll, as supplementary evidence due to its psychological relevance. Mr. Drake sneered. "Are we seriously allowing a child's imagination to put a man's career on trial?" Tom responded calmly. "When that imagination reveals verifiable medical codes and a dead nurse's last known statements, yes." The next day, Dr. Halvers was called to the stand. He denied everything, claimed Linda was emotionally unstable, dismissed the audio as a digital fake. But when asked if he'd been inside Crib B's NICU at 9:07 a.m. on October 12th, he hesitated. Just a second. The courtroom felt that second like a scream. "I don't recall," he said. "You don't recall the moment an infant died under your watch?" Silence. That night, back at home, Naomi finally spoke without being prompted. "Mama?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "She's not angry anymore." "Who?" "Mia. She says you were brave, and now she can rest." Linda pulled her daughter close. "And you?" "I'm not scared anymore." Linda turned toward the lavender doll sitting on the window, and for the first time, she swore she saw it smiling back. In the matter of Naomi Davis v. Dr. Calvin Halvers, we, the jury, the room fell silent. Naomi clutched her mother's hand. Linda closed her eyes, and then the judge looked down at the verdict slip. The courtroom was full. Reporters, parents who'd once trusted the hospital, doctors silently praying Halvers wouldn't take them all down with him. But most striking of all was Naomi. She wore her sister's old ribbon in her hair, lavender, faded. In her lap was the doll, not tucked away this time, held proudly. Just as the judge was preparing to read the verdict, a young man in a courier's uniform rushed in with an envelope. "Urgent evidence. Delivered by hand. Just now." Judge Harlan raised an eyebrow. "This better be good." Tom Carter opened the envelope. Inside was a single photo and a signed confession. The photo showed Dr. Halvers at an off-site facility with a pharmaceutical rep. The date? 2 days before Mia died. The confession from the rep. "We knew it was risky. Halvers assured us the baby wouldn't survive anyway. He said he'd make it look natural." Gasps filled the room. The jury was still deliberating, but now the room already knew. 30 minutes later, they were back. Foreman stood, face pale. In the matter of Naomi Davis v. Dr. Calvin Halvers, on the charge of medical malpractice resulting in wrongful death, we find the defendant guilty. Bus. On the charge of falsifying medical documents, guilty. On the charge of obstruction of justice and endangering a minor, guilty. 3 words. Naomi flinched, then exhaled and began to cry, not out of fear, but release. The courtroom erupted. Halvers stood, trembling. His attorney whispered furiously, trying to shield him from reporters already gathering outside. "I didn't kill her," Halvers whispered. I didn't think it mattered. She was already gone." Linda stood up. "She wasn't gone. She was fighting. You stole her chance." For a brief moment, Halvers looked at Naomi, and for the first time, he looked afraid. That evening, the story hit every major news outlet. Doctor convicted after 6-year-old's testimony breaks hospital silence. Ghost in the machine: how one child's memory brought justice. Parents everywhere questioned their NICU records. Hospitals scrambled to review protocols. A new law was proposed, Naomi's Law, requiring third-party audits for all experimental treatments involving infants. And Linda? She refused every interview request. This wasn't about headlines. It was about Mia. That night, Naomi stood in front of the mirror in her bedroom, the lavender doll in her hands. "You can go now," she whispered. The mirror stayed silent, but something in the room felt lighter. She set the doll on the windowsill, and as the moonlight poured across the floor, the ribbon on the doll fluttered once, though the window was shut. Linda saw it too. She didn't question it. Not anymore. 6 months later, Linda opened a small clinic, one focused on supporting NICU families and ensuring patient advocacy. Its name? Mia's Place. And on the wall, near the entrance, hung in a silver frame, Naomi's drawing. The final one, Mia in the sky, smiling, lavender ribbon floating beside her.